Alright, I'm going to talk a little bit about the D chord and how to add some melody, some easy way to add melody off of the D chord, get a nice little riff going. Then I'll demonstrate it with a song I wrote, a little murder ballad. It's like many other murder ballads. So D chord is kind of neat because there's a four finger D chord, a 3-finger D chord, a 2-finger D chord, and a 1-finger D chord. The first one you probably learn when you get the textbooks is the 4-finger, and what you're doing is you take your pinky finger on the 1st string 4th fret, your middle finger on the 2nd string 3rd fret, your 1st finger, pointer finger, on the 3rd string 2nd fret, and then your ring finger on the 4th string 4th fret. And that's a full D chord. It's got all the 1, 3, 4 notes. But there's a really cool thing about the banjo being tuned in open G is that 1st string and the 4th string, those are D. So those are kind of free notes. Since you're playing the chord in D, you don't actually have to plant that 3rd finger on the 4th string. So you can play it with just 3. So instead of doing this awkward position, you can just take that ring finger and bring it down onto the 1st string at the 4th fret. Kind of tic-tac-toe, 3 in a row, diagonal kind of thing going on here. So, kind of like that. Hope that makes sense. So you can play that 4th string open. And that's usually how I play the D chord, because I'm lazy. But it gets even easier. If you only want to play it with 2 fingers, you can take this ring finger off altogether and play the 1st string open. Now that's a D power chord, because you're really only playing the 1st and 5th note in the scale. D and plus 5. And it gets even easier. You can take 1 finger, because you know your banjo is tuned, it gives you a free chord with open G. So if I take, my finger and run it up the scale up into the 7th fret, that's a D chord, D major. It's a little higher tone, but still sounds very nice. So you got your 4-finger D chord, your D, 3-finger D chord, and your 2-finger D chord, and your 1-finger D chord. And you'll probably use them all at some point. Even though I don't like to play the 4-finger D chord, I'll still use that note, but I use it as a nice handy hammer-on location, which I'm going to get into that now. So I'm going to give you a little demonstration of what I'm talking about, then I'll break it down so it kind of makes sense. So I'm going to start with my D power chord and keep my other fingers free so that I can start adding notes and give a little bit of melody while I'm frailing. Okay, so what I did there was, so if you're playing a song in G major, you're probably gonna at some point play the other chords, the D, your A, and then your G, which is no fingers. Well, the cool thing about that is the chords, they're all, because they're in that scale, they're in the key of D, all the notes in those chords are going to be in the scale of D. So if you play any of the notes on those chords while you're playing the D chord, that's going to be in the right scale. So what that means is if I got a D chord here, and then I play that A, and then I go back to the D, right? Well, if I take this finger on the 2nd string and slide it down a half step, that just so happens to be where that A chord was. And then if I take if I hammer on with this chord right here, or this finger, the ring finger on the 4th string, well, that we know is already in the D chord, So when I was playing the full D chord, right, I was already playing that note, but when I'm playing the power D chord, I'm not playing that note, and I just do a hammer on. Then I go to the A chord, and I do the same hammer on. And then if I keep going in the scale, so on the third string, I'm playing that part of that D power chord, and then I take that same ring finger, instead of hammering on the fourth string, I hammer on that third string, 4th fret. And because the D chord, or the G chord, is also in the scale of D, I can lift up my fingers. So I can do pull-offs and hammer-ons. That's real pretty. Hopefully this showing you it makes a lot more sense than me trying to explain it. D chord with hammer-ons to A chord. But I'm only playing the notes that were available in the D chord anyway. So when I was playing the G, I did a little hammer on where that D chord lives. And that's a nice lead in. If I'm in a G chord and I want to go to the D chord, right before I go to the D chord, I can start hammering on or pulling off where the D chord lives. So what I did there, I was playing the D, and I went where that, if I was playing the A chord, that note on the 4th string, 2nd fret, is going to get played. So while I'm on the D chord, I just kind of poke that little finger up right there. So it sounds a lot more fancy than it really is. I'm just playing 3 chords. And if you're wondering where that little extra note right here is coming from, I could play a G chord right here, the 4-finger way. I won't really get too much into it, but the important thing is this finger right here on the 4th fret, 3rd string. That's part of the G chord. So when I'm in the D chord and I use that ring finger, so, oops, that's really just the D chord sneaking into the G chord. So in that melody, I'm not really playing any notes that are outside of the 3 chords inside of the D, the key of D. But I'm really focusing on that D chord here. play a song I wrote around that little riff. Just a simple murder ballad, like many others. It's called Satan Came to Dinner. Satan came to dinner, he brought wine and he brought flowers. Was a man in a suit and he looked good. You were young and you looked pretty. A gal out on the city wore a dress and you looked good. He was a bastard that man, he broke your heart. It's not your fault, he broke your heart. He was a bastard that man, he broke your heart. It's not your fault, he broke your heart. The two of you got married, bought a house outside the city, couldn't drive, so you stayed home. He got a job, he worked the ferry, brought home the bread and dairy, couldn't work, so you stayed home. He was a bastard, that man broke your heart. It's not your fault, he broke your heart. He was a bastard, that man, he broke your heart. It's not your fault, he broke your heart. He'd get drunk and he'd get scary, lost his job out on the ferry, got a belt and he beat you good. He bought a gun and he went crazy, called your name, said you was lazy, lost his mind and he beat you good. He was a bastard, that man broke your heart. It's not your fault, he broke your heart. He was a bastard, that man, he broke your heart. It's not your fault, he broke your heart. Didn't hear you in the trunk, all tied up 'cause I was drunk. I cut the lines to his brakes. He drove that car into the river, didn't know that you were in there, killed you both. I killed you both. He was a bastard, that man, he broke your heart. It's not your fault, he broke your heart. He was a bastard, that man, he broke your heart. It's not your fault, he broke your heart. So at the end there, little cheater ending, I take that 3-finger D chord and I just slide it down a half step. Kind of gives it a little spooky. And then I play that G chord, but I plant that finger on the 4th fret. So I'm just sliding down. There you go, it's all easy, it all fits together. So I hope that helps somebody. Thanks for watching.